What is up? What is up? What is up, everybody? Let us fire it up. I'm going to get so owned in this game. It's time that we get to the Steam Top 50 and seeing what the latest trends are. Gary's Mod. There's TF2. It's usually around somewhere. Woo! Oh, it's snakes. Does it just have really high retention? This genre is still viable. Or you just gotta shoot his butt. There was kind of a trend for a while. Like that is just the way things work. We did it! Hello, chums. Happy Friday to you all. Welcome to the Clark Tank. I wanted to go back and play Islanders, which is a game that we discussed a while ago on the Clark Tank. And I remember when it came out, I think we saw it in like the new and trending or something like that. I don't believe it was in the top sellers charts. But we took note of it for sure. And look how well it's doing. It's got 2,000 reviews. So if you use, sort of the low Boxlighter number of 50, that would mean 100,000 units in, since early April, so in a month and a half. But now the other interesting thing about this game is that it's $5. It's like US dollars. This would be $5. It seems strange that when you finish an island, you just kind of go on to the next one. Most city builders just let you play and play and play for, tens of hours. And that is, good for retention, because whenever there's a spot where you can stop and say like, all right, I'm going to go to bed, or I'm going to do something else, I'm going to do some chores or whatever, that tends to harm a game's retention. So I was a little bit surprised. For a variety of reasons, this game is interesting. Shows that city builders as a genre are still strong, of course, but like $5 is weird. Why don't we check out the trailer for Islanders again, so that we know what we're going to be getting into later.
Please keep in mind that it does not offer the same amount of depth and late game features as other, more complex city builders. Instead,
cool that
we hope that Islanders is one of those beautiful...
Yeah, the graphics are certainly clear and pleasing, not too overwhelming. All right, so yeah, we're going to be playing Islanders at the end, but first, let's go over the latest news. And I think the biggest thing to occur in the last 3 weeks was the Epic Mega Sale. So the Epic Games Store had a sale where they gave $10 off any game that's $14.99 and over. And in reaction to this, some devs pulled their games from the store. Some devs, like I believe Supergiant with Hades, increased the price of their game. I think people who are not game developers might not understand why the publishers and the developers reacted the way that they did. It's definitely cool of Epic to be like, we're giving you $10 off, and that's coming out of our pocket rather than the developer's pocket. So that's just free money for the person who is buying the game, and it doesn't harm the devs at all. They still get full price, which seems super cool on the surface. There are a lot of websites out there that keep track of like what is the lowest discount that a game has ever been discounted at, so that you can tell if there's a sale, like should I buy it in this sale or should I wait for to at least match that previous lowest discount. And so now some of these games, I think even games that were on pre-orders were discounted. If your game was $20 and it was discounted to 10, now it looks like your game was on sale at 50% off, but that wasn't something that the developer chose to do. So that can affect your ability to sell in future sales. As usual, it seems like Epic's heart is in the right place. They're trying to do the right things, like make it give great discounts to people who use their store. But it seems like the repercussions of it were not quite what they were expecting. But yeah, hopefully over time they'll refine these sorts of things. I've heard some people say that instead of knocking the price down of the game, if you just give the $10 in the shopping cart or something like that, that way they can spend it on any game. Or if it's like a coupon, rather than seeing that game itself with its price reduced, if it's like a coupon for 50% off or $10 off any game of this amount or more, then that wouldn't trigger those websites to think that any individual game was heavily discounted. So I think there's ways of doing it, and I do think that it's cool that they're trying to do these sorts of things. It helps developers and helps people who are buying the games too. And yeah, I think that they'll get there. And yeah, Sergey who works at Epic on the store, also tweeted about it, saying that if you bought or pre-purchased anything on Epic in the last 2 weeks, we've got your back. You'll receive a partial refund for the price difference. That's super cool of them to do that. So like, you wouldn't feel left out if you like had just bought something. So yeah, again, it shows that their heart is in the right place and they're trying to do good things for devs and gamers, which is great. So please keep it up, Epic. And yeah, speaking of Epic, it sounds like the Epic Game Store is now available in China, which is extremely interesting. And this article in PC Gamer from a week ago talking about the fact that Epic is now there, but also the fact that Steam has been available in China for a long time, and it seems kind of strange because, you know, a lot of the games that are on Steam have not gone through the regular process of being approved for a sale in China. So why is this being permitted? And yeah, the games that are on the Epic Store, I don't believe all of them have gone through that process as well. And it's also strange because Tencent, who, you know, has their own store, Wii game, in China and the world, you know, is competing. Tencent and Epic are now competing in the Chinese market. Some people before said that, okay, well maybe Tencent is just going to focus on China and Epic is going to, you know, focus on the rest of the world, but that is not happening, which is interesting. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see how this plays out because, as many developers know, on Steam, China has just become a bigger and bigger and bigger part of our sales. So we've noticed it a lot with Necrodancer. So if suddenly Steam is not available in China, that would be a big deal. So yeah, it's want to watch this very carefully to see what happens with Epic Game Store and Steam in China. And yeah, this last couple of weeks, Valve have been posting a few interesting blog posts. But yeah, it's talking about review bombs and positive review bombs, which I never really considered. So now Valve, of course, has a new system for keeping track of review bombs. You know, that was to try to, you know, help protect games from being brigaded for various reasons. But I suppose that you could also be positively brigaded for reasons that have nothing to do with the quality of your game. And so their system could detect and deal with those sorts of things as well. And so I guess the example that they're giving here is Assassin's Creed Unity has supposedly the best recreation, you know, in a video game or maybe outside of a video game of the Notre Dame Cathedral, which was damaged and, you know, heavily damaged in a fire recently. And so because of that, people were talking about Assassin's Creed and, you know, you're rating it more positively. It's not totally clear whether Valve considers this to be positive review bombing, because it does actually have something to do with the content of the game. Like now, because the real life Notre Dame Cathedral is no longer there, this game has more value than it did before. So maybe it does deserve to have a better rating than it did. I could see why they wouldn't, you know, employ their review bomb stopping system on this, but yeah, and it's also interesting that it's talking about that the game was free or really cheap on other platforms. I can't remember which store it was that they were talking about, and yet people were still buying it on Steam, which is interesting. But yeah, the little tidbit here that I thought was most interesting: your review score doesn't really have too much effect on your visibility within the Steam store unless you get down into mixed. So as soon as it dropped below mixed into the negative buckets, so I guess even mixed is okay, but negative buckets, then you might start to see, you know, some drop in your visibility. So yeah, before we've heard people say that, yeah, you shouldn't really worry about whether you're overwhelmingly positive or very positive or whatever. And you know, it's possible that the difference between those two buckets is really small, but it does seem like there probably is, you know, some effect. I do think that there's some psychological effect. If somebody sees overwhelmingly positive on your store page, they themselves just may be more likely to buy, because that's like a pretty darn good endorsement. Like if you got over 10,000 reviews like Necrodancer does, and it's still overwhelmingly positive, that must mean that the game is pretty good in general, right? So, you know, even outside of direct boosting by the algorithm, I think it still helps to be in those higher buckets. But yeah, as we've seen with, you know, NBA games and stuff like that, which are always, really low scoring, they still are in the charts. So obviously it's not a massive effect, just like Valve is indeed saying here. But yeah, I do think it still matters, and obviously you should try to make as highly polished a game as you can. And at Brace Yourself, we always try to respond to the negative reviews to address people's concerns and try to help them. Because often people use negative reviews as a way of asking for customer support, or of giving game design feedback, or just, talking about things that sometimes show that they didn't understand something about the game, and if we explain it, often they're very appreciative and will remove their review or change it to a positive one. So I definitely recommend that you do that if you have the time. And yeah, Valve also posted top Steam releases of April 2019, and it seems like Valve are moving more and more in this direction. And Alden actually specifically says how they did it. They start by enumerating all games released between April 1 and April 30th, then looked at the revenue earned by each of those games in the first 2 weeks following that game's release. So it's good they're doing apples to apples, and that's why they couldn't do it right after April, because they need to make sure that a game released on April 30th still has 2 weeks worth of sales in order to be compared fairly to the other games that were released earlier. So we took the top 20 games by revenue to make our final list, and sorted them by release date. So yeah, it's a bummer that they sorted them by release date, because we already could tell the release dates. It would have been nice if they sorted them by revenue instead, but we could probably estimate that just by doing the usual box lighter thing, looking at total number of reviews. But yeah, still, this is pretty cool. So these are the top 20 best-selling games of April. All right, well, let's take a look at the list. Totally Accurate Battle Simulator, not too surprising. It released in early access on April 1st. Yeah, these types of hilarious physics-y games tend to do really well, and this one was well known for sure, so not surprising. Super Dragon Ball Heroes, not too surprising. Anything with such a big IP attached to it, you would expect it to do reasonably well. So Islanders, this was a surprise, and I think this is the impetus for me wanting to go back and check this out again, because I remember when it came out, it looked like it was doing reasonably well. But to be one of the top sellers, like top grossing games in April, and it's a $5 game, that is noteworthy for sure. So yeah, thanks Alden for making this list and making me want to go back and check out Islanders again. So this is Mars, the tactical base defense. This is a zombie defense game on Mars, which is pretty cool. Superland we talked about a few times on the Clark Tank. It's the one with that really cool trailer that had the pie chart at the end of it. Again, I wouldn't quite have expected this to be in the top 20 sellers, so that's pretty cool as well. Ace Attorney, not so surprising, a really well-known game. Vacation Simulator, so this is kind of a semi-sequel to Job Simulator, the really popular VR game. I don't remember if we watched the trailer for that or not, so let's check it out, just in case. Fight battles in real time. Fight battles with goats? I guess so. Is this based on a known franchise? Does anybody know? I don't think we watched this before. I think I remember all these goats. That's not what I was expecting when I saw this description here, which said a post-apocalyptic simulation game. If you stop right there, you get certain, images in your head of maybe zombies, or something RimWorld-ish, or They Are Billions, or something like that, maybe. Simulation game, but then deep narrative and elements of RPG and dungeon crawling. It's just like, just throw it all in there. Throw in all the genres. It only has 131. That's not too many. And also, I guess if we're just looking at review scores, we're not comparing apples to apples, because some of those games have been out for longer than the other ones. So yeah, again, that's why I think we should make tools that keep track of the number of reviews a game has after a few weeks, and snapshot it at that time, because otherwise we are not always comparing apples to apples if we're just looking at number of reviews for different games out for different lengths of time. But actually, Alex Vostrov pointed out to me that we can actually use this sort of information for estimating that, and estimating long tails of games. So let's find a game that's been out for a long time. Okay, so yeah, since box slider thing, we know the box slider method works reasonably well, and you can, multiply number of reviews by 50, 60, 70-ish to get an estimate of the number of sales. You could do that on this sort of data to figure out how is the tail for a certain game going. So yeah, we could do analysis of like different genres, how thick are the tails of the different types of genres, how much certain tags and things like that matter. So if anyone's feeling keen, look at all this beautiful data. All right, so next was Pathway, which we definitely talked about. Weedcraft, game about the business of producing, breeding, and selling weed in America. That's not too surprising. Hey, Staxel, which I don't know if Bart is in the chat. One of our friends from the Clark Tank here made that game. One Finger Death Punch 2, not so surprising because the original One Finger Death Punch did really well, and I think is one of the highest rated games of all time on Steam. And then Forager, also from one of our Clark Tank friends, Hopfrog. Pagan Online, is this free to play? Some costly graphics. The old blindfolded bear ride. Okay, so my seat of the pants, knowing nothing actually about the game theory, is that those trailers, especially that first one, was like really expensive. Seemed like more over the top compared to what the actual gameplay is. Those types of things, where you get really hyped from the trailer, but the game is not really doesn't match it as well, can result in people being a bit upset. So that may have some effect. 65% is not that bad. All right, let's keep going. Finish off this list here. Katana Zero. We definitely checked that out. It looked pretty cool indie combat game. Driftland: The Magic Revival. What even is this? A real-time strategy city builder. I don't recall us seeing this either.
Become
powerful.
Oh,
no, we did what? Oh, it's a city builder. It looks like RTS. Surprising. Yeah, lately it seems like RTSs, there haven't been that many, and the ones that there have been haven't done especially well. Like this is decently well, but RTSs are not easy to make. It takes a while to make a game like that. So I'm not sure if the developers of this would call this a success, if this is going to be profitable or not. Hopefully it can continue to sell at that pace, and then it will be for them. But yeah, a game like that is difficult to make well. All right, Paper Dolls Original. Yeah, this genre of game seems to work reasonably well in China. Mixed reviews. So yeah, only 10 reviews in our language. So yeah. So this is doing well in China, basically, this is a phenomenon that we're seeing more and more, especially games made in China. So it's the developers got Beijing in their titles, so I assume it was made in China. Okay. And then Mortal Kombat. People aren't super happy with this game. I've talked with a few different folks. Wow, mostly negative. Yeah, it's got a ton of reviews though. Like that, Paradox has power for sure. Any game that they put out, people are gonna take a look. A lot of people have said that Paradox games, they launch them and there's various issues, and they work on them and improve them over time. So hopefully that's going to be the case with this. Yeah, super cool of Valve, of Alden, to make this list for us. Hopefully they do more of that. So yeah, some other news from the last few weeks. All remaining Telltale Games series will be gone from GOG next week. And I saw some people speculating on Twitter that the same may happen to Steam. It's weird. I don't know why, just because a company sort of shuts down its active development doesn't mean that it can't continue to collect the income from the games that it's already made. Like, those games exist, they can sell them still. So yeah, a bit surprising. Some people speculating that, maybe they're going to remove it from all the other stores and then make it exclusive to Epic or something like that. I guess that's possible. But yeah, well, we'll see if they all get removed from Steam or not, but it's a little surprising. But if the company doesn't exist, well, somebody must have the rights to it. Like, the rights to these games are still valuable. the games are still bringing in income. So, even if the company went under, they would have sold the rights, to someone else to get some funds out of it. So it doesn't make sense at all that they would just turn it off unless they had some, agreements that have expired that other people are not renewing. So, like, sometimes there are games that have, someone owns the rights to the likenesses of the people or to the voiceover or the music or whatever, and if they don't renew those rights, then the game would have to be edited to remove all those bits of content or something like that, and maybe it's not worth it. So it's possible those types of things are going on here. I would be surprised, though, if that was the case. GOG had another bit of news this week. So GOG Galaxy 2.0, I haven't tried it yet myself, but supposedly you can put all of your games from your Steam library and from your Epic library, and they can all be accessed from inside GOG Galaxy 2, and your friends as well. So I'm not sure how exactly GOG is achieving these sorts of things, but it's a clever idea. Like, why wouldn't you, if you're technically capable of doing this sort of thing, why wouldn't you do that? Because one main complaint that people have about the Epic Store is that now there's another launcher that I need to keep track of. My library is fragmented and stuff like that. And if GOG can come in and say, well, we'll just unify that for you, then people may be more likely to use their launcher. And if they're using their launcher, they're more likely to buy games, from the GOG store, because they'll be presented with them via the launcher. So, another bit of interesting news. THQ Nordic talking about, their financial results from the last year. And it has a bit in here about the Epic Games Store. It says net sales of business area Coffee Stain were, this is Swedish kroner, 98 million. So I'm going to convert this in a second to US so we can see. In the quarter, we had a successful early access launch of Satisfactory in the Epic Games Store. The game's launch performance exceeded management's expectations at the time of our acquisition of Coffee Stain. So that means when they acquired Coffee Stain, they were expecting this quarter's, this launch, the results to be worse than this. So they probably underpaid for Coffee Stain, basically. And I'm not sure if when they acquired Coffee Stain that the Epic Games Store exclusivity deal was already made. It kind of sounds like it if they, had expectations of the launch. So it sounds like they thought that the game wouldn't sell as well as it did on the Epic Games Store. So that's interesting. But yeah, how much money is this in US dollars? It's 10 million. So 10 million in one quarter. That's quite a lot. So yeah, we've just been getting more and more data that sort of corroborates this, that the Epic Games Store games are selling quite well on there. Like, if Satisfactory sold 10 million on Steam in the first quarter, honestly, that would seem about right to me. It's like a 3D Factorio-ish sort of game, and Factorio obviously kills it on Steam. But yeah, that sort of result is not too surprising. If that were on Steam and it made 10 million in the first quarter, then you could expect it over the next few years to get up to 30, 40 million maybe. That means that the Epic Games Store is not that far off from Steam in terms of sales results, which is honestly surprising that happened so quickly. It's not clear from that previous article if that 98 million Swedish kroner were just from the advance that the developers received. All right, a couple more. I think this is the last bit of news before we get to our usual homework. Total War conquered China to break franchise records. So I guess this is the first totally new mainline Total War game in a number of years. So not too surprising that it's doing really well. But yeah, and also not too surprising that it's doing really well in China because of the Three Kingdoms setting. But yeah, it sounds like they're having their highest user numbers ever on Steam. So I expect we will be seeing this in the chart. But yeah, again, it just sort of reinforces what we were talking about earlier, that China is becoming more and more important. And whatever happens with Steam and the Epic Store in China is going to be big. It's going to affect all of us a lot. So we need to keep an eye on it for sure. All right, let's check out Harbor's follower count. Nothing super surprising there. I think we were benefited by Alden posting that that listing of the games that came out, the top games in April. We learned a bunch from that. All right, this is Emil's link, Emil's aggregator. Let's check that out as well. A few to take a look at, and then we'll get to the top 50. So yeah, these are some cool folks from Denmark. They started their company by finding a room in a university that was unused, and then having like 8 people live in it, and sneaking into the kitchens and stuff like that in the university in order to cook. And then they got caught and kicked out and stuff. So also they're just really nice guys, very fun to hang out with as well. So it's cool to see their games doing so well. They said that their retention and stuff is really high, and they managed to get investors because of that. But yeah, congrats to you, Beta Dwarf, on the launch. Hope you will continue to kick butt. Whoa, rats!
It was dark.
Yeah, I don't really understand what this game is. The gameplay is like. It's stealthy? Looks like there's some combat in it and, some story, or it's a bunch of sneaking around. Yeah, it definitely appears to be extremely well made. The cost of making a game like that is high, so again, I wonder at the profitability. Right, what is this zombie blocks? Okay, so it's got a lot of followers, but it's not even out yet. Why would it have so many followers? The frame rate is horrible and the graphics are not good. What? Police stories, what's this about?
Rick and I have been
interesting graphical style. Okay,
years.
Hotline Miami-ish. Yeah, seems more tactical. All right, so this one's not out yet, but it's getting a fair number of followers. And yeah, that previous game that we looked at is similar to the game Unturned. It's possible that there's like some kind of external community that made it or is excited about it or something like that. Or it's possible that it's somehow exploiting some glitch in Steam's recommendation algorithms. But it could just be that if some external source is giving it a lot of traffic, then Steam itself amplifies it. We talked about this last Clark Tank and previous Clark Tanks too. So that could be why it's surfacing for people and getting a lot of followers. But that's enough of the preamble. Let's get started on our homework here. So see what is selling. I'm sure we're going to see a lot of the games that we've already talked about. So yeah, Three Kingdoms Total War, not surprising to see it at the top of the charts because it just came out yesterday especially. And yeah, doing extremely well in China. So yeah, it's not moving, it's just solidly number 1. Skylines, why are you so high? Skylines has new DLC, aha, that makes sense. It's not even on sale. It's weird, you'd think when they release a new DLC they put on sale, but maybe the DLC came out a little while ago. Euro Truck's on sale, FF, usually around Rocket League. Still will be interesting to see what happens now that Epic owns Psyonix Bloodstained. So this is pre-order for it. They're just showing like people's tweets and YouTube comments and stuff. First of all, I dig that. All right, looked like poop, and now it's new and looks good. I need to be in the trailers throwing wine glasses. It wouldn't be a wine glass, it'd be a beer can. I'd have to like crush it on my head. 2+ years from their stated deadline. Okay, yeah. So they've been working on it for a while, and then people were not happy with how it looked, and they updated it. But now it's actually coming out in a month, and the fact that it's in the charts for pre-orders. Why is it 10%? Is it going to be like 10% off all the way until it launches? Or it just came out for pre-orders and 10% off? A little strange to do that. Why do devs do pre-orders? Well, I think devs shouldn't do pre-orders unless they think that despite the pre-orders, they're still going to get to number 1 on launch day. But yeah, I think for a variety of reasons, you want to spike as high as you can on launch day. And if you think you're going to spike high regardless of pre-orders or not, then yeah, you do probably want to do pre-orders, because the conventional wisdom always was that you want to capture the sale as soon as you can. So like if you put out a trailer and people are getting hyped about your trailer and tweeting about it and things like that, ideally you want them to be able to buy the game or pre-order it right then, because some percentage of those people are definitely going to forget or get busy or buy something else or whatever in the meantime. And so if you don't capture that sale right then, you may lose it. But now, because of Steam's algorithms, it does various things. It amplifies games that are succeeding and that have, successful launch days. So only really extremely popular games should do it, in my opinion. And it looks like Bloodstained, might be popular enough for that to work. And Risk of Rain, there she is, 23. How is it still that high in the charts? Oh my God, it's making so much money. Like, what game can you think of that is similar to its kind of gameplay? On a smaller scale than a Battle Royale, they invented a kind of gameplay with the way that it ramps up and the way that you go to the gates and things like that. Like, they invented it in Risk of Rain 1 and then are using it again in Risk of Rain 2 and just attracting a wider audience, I think, because so many people just don't give 2D games the time of day. But now it's 3D, so a lot of people who would have passed it up are checking it out. So, the success of this must just be because of the feel and the gameplay, the way that it works. It's pretty bonkers. Pathologic. So, 2, is this not out yet?
Fruitful.
What even kind of game is this?
Achieve.
Alright, it's already out. Huh. Why does the release date say May if it's already out and should have, a specific release date? Interesting. So yeah, it came out recently, dropping reasonably quick. There have been other games of this type where it's like narrative-ish, dark, that don't necessarily do well. I don't have a great feel for why some of those games get in the top sellers and some don't. I would also be concerned. About making a game like that because I don't personally understand it, but maybe other people do. Human Fall Flat. Did it go on sale or get an update? It says now with public workshop. Okay, that could be why. Surviving Mars. Armstrong update patch notes. Okay, so they had an update. Battalion 1944. This is new. Let's check it out. Hey, what's unique about this, though? That's what you do in these games. Shoot people in the face. But yeah, it seems... Was it in early access before? Why has it got this many reviews? This seems not possible. Early access. Okay, so it just came out of early access. It's very much like Counter-Strike. Okay, well, if it's more like Counter-Strike, then it makes a little more sense because obviously the Steam audience loves them some Counter-Strike because it's always at the top of the charts. So I mean, American Fugitive, what are you? Yeah, the vehicle portions of this seem pretty dang unique, and like showing you putting a cop car into a car crusher is... Huh, I'm a bit surprised this isn't doing better, actually. Has it got bad reviews? Huh. Yeah, why is this not doing better? Yeah, this seems like the type of thing that would do really well on Steam, especially if it was multiplayer, but yeah, it's not. Yeah, these numbers are not bad, for sure, but, and I guess this is multiple days after its launch, so it would have been higher when it first came out. So yeah, 48th in the top seller. Splitgate Arena Warfare, what are you? Came out today and it's free. Halo plus Portal. You can make portals all over the place? Huh. Multiplayer first-person shooter that uses player-controlled portals to create a new dimension of arena combat. That is a crazy idea. Is that what first-person shooter people want? Is like crazy portals coming out of nowhere? It's doing... Okay, so this is free-to-play. We can't tell based on reviews how it's doing, but in the Steam charts, it's doing okay. It just launched. Maybe it'll climb, but yeah, if this is its peak, they may be a bit disappointed with that. But the economics of free-to-play games are different, because if it can stick around here for a long period of time, then it'll do just fine. Sonic Team Racing just came out a couple days ago, and then Star Trek Online. All right, let's watch this and then move on. Like, it's nice music, but it doesn't go up or down. It doesn't go anywhere. And yeah, there's nothing. Like, why couldn't you show a story in this trailer of like someone's in the lead and then stuff happens to them and then there's final climax right at the end where they just barely beat the other one. But it's just showing a bunch of unrelated clips as far as I can tell. I don't know. I feel like it could have done better, but yeah, selling reasonably well, I guess. But yeah, again, it feels like somewhat new era to me, where such well-known franchises get outcompeted and like utterly destroyed by games like Risk of Rain. We just need to be creative, and we need to, pay attention to what types of things are selling, so that we have a good feel for the market. All right, let's look at the top wish lists briefly. So yeah, Dwarf Fortress still hanging around, which is awesome, and Hollow Knight Silk Song. I know a lot of people are pumped about that. Yeah, Octopath, and not surprising that people would be pumped that it's coming to PC. Hell Let Loose. All right, I don't recall seeing this one before, so let's check this. It's surprising how little that chart changes. Realistic World War II first-person shooter. The world can never have enough of those, I suppose. Yeah, it's weird. If the title is Hell Let Loose, like the trailer is surprisingly peaceful. It looks nice, but yeah. Oh, Team 17 publishing it. That's interesting. All right, so now we're at the point where we are going to check out the new and trending to make sure we haven't missed anything. China Mao's Legacy. Holy smokes! Like, those are the types of things that could get your game banned in China. But if it's the version of events that China approves of, then maybe it's totally fine. But yeah, seems like a risky one. Interstellar Transport Company. We have not seen that. It was not in the charts, but seems to be doing well. Splitgate we saw, Mini Masters we saw, Dollhouse. Okay, this got nudity. We're not going to watch it. Alternate Dimension. Ah, that's a funny pun. Dimension. Project Winter. Survival multiplayer co-op strategy. This was not in the charts either. Alright, let's check out Interstellar Transport Company. Sounds like fun. Wow, that UI is... holy smokes. That UI is pretty overwhelming. Huh. This game seems like a little rough, like those ships were just like disappearing. There definitely are a lot of people who are into this nerdy sort of, spreadsheet management. Huh. Yeah, that's came out today? Was this in early access before? It was. Okay, because there's no way that it would sell that many copies today and not be in the top sellers charts. So yeah, it's selling modestly. Okay, that makes a bit more sense. Yeah, I thought that it was selling this much, this quickly, and I was surprised that that would be the case. I definitely think that there is an audience for this kind of game on Steam, but the roughness and the difficulty, of understanding those UIs and stuff like that, seemed to indicate it should be a bit more niche. All right, Project Winter. Yeah, what was this about? What? It's like a social deduction game? Is it multiplayer? The perfect game to backstab your friends. Project Winter is an 8-person multiplayer game focused on social deception and survival. Communication and teamwork is essential to the survival's ultimate goal of escape, gather resources, repair structures, and brave the wilderness together. Okay, that's clever. Yeah, like social deduction games like Werewolf and whatnot have been quite popular lately, so taking Werewolf and beefing it up, like making it more like a full computer game, seems like an interesting experiment. Huh. And it's, unless this was in early access, it's doing quite well. It was in early access. What? It just launched now, and it had a free weekend recently? Okay. This is very confusing. It's not really possible to extrapolate anything from this then, because the data is all messed up. An extremely short early access, then a free weekend, and some YouTube... wow, look at that. We're getting near the end here. We're going to play some Islanders soon. But first, let's check out the Hypestagram. This just shows us how many games released on Steam on each day the last few weeks. The average is looking like, for the weekdays, 20-ish, low 20s. It's about normal. And then here we have Harbor's chart where we can see the historical data. So 2019 is this tan color here. And 2018 is red as last year, and 2017 the year before, and we're in the middle. So, but anyway, Indiepocalypse is definitely not, happening the way a lot of people predicted, where it's just the number of games launching is going to increase and increase and increase forever and ever. It looks like, we're less than last year by a fair amount, and not that far off 2017. So, yeah, whatever this is, it seems to happen each year. See, I guess if you were trying to figure out when you should launch your game, looking at this chart could help, because some of these bumps are consistent and not related to any particular sale. Like this dip is related to summer sale. All right, so we know that there's a decent number of games coming out, but it's not a massive number. So the reason why we check the Steam Microtrailers is so we could see, of those games, what kind of games are they? What is their quality level? This game seems fine, but it's not, it's not a AAA indie sort of game. Alliance, oh, neat. So this just came out today from Spryfox. Huh, is it free to play? Let's check this out. I didn't, it is free to play. So it's not selling well enough to be in the charts, but it looks like it came out only 5 hours ago. Co-op Bullet Hell. Well, they did, Realm of the Mad God, is that what it was called before? Well, that's cool. Well, I like the folks over at Spryfox, so hopefully this game, does really well for them. And again, yeah, the model for free-to-play games is they don't necessarily need a giant spike. They just need to retain people and then monetize well over a long period of time. So hopefully that's the case. Okay, moving on, we'll check out some games on Kickstarter. Do the Kickstarter report. Mirador Co-op Arena Fights by Sauropod. Oh, those are the people that made Castle Story, right? Okay, we should check this out. Afterlight, an emotional journey inside the mind. Alright, let's check that out. Lunaphon, Tales of the Moon Oak, hand-painted traditionally to the animated game, enchantingly inspired. Yeah, it looks like this is not going to get its funding. Again, that's similar to this. It's like just talking about how beautiful it is, inspired by things and whatnot, but what is unique about it? And if the graphics are unique, you just show the uniqueness of the graphics, right? I don't think I've ever seen anybody say that a Persona style game. Alright, let's check out these three and then move on to playing some Islanders. This looks a lot like Fury then.
What's unique about Mirador is that all bosses in the game are created by you and rival players. Mirador is really two different experiences in one, with both offering their own.
Okay, well I hope it works out for them, a fellow Canadian studio. But yeah, the fact that Fury, I don't think it did exceptionally well. Oh, better than I thought. Yeah, that's pretty dang good. So like, if you're gonna make a game similar to an existing game, you have to one-up it in many, in as many respects as you can. Yeah, again, the Mirador talking about the user-created bosses. I don't think that sort of like trying to get people excited about user-generated content. It's similar to a story, a game's backstory or something like that. Like nobody cares about the two giant moons that smash together to create your world. They care about that after they care about the game. Same with user-generated content. Why would I want more content for a game that I'm not even convinced yet that I want the game? So leading with that seems a little strange to me. Okay, Afterlight. This is one that's about Titan. What's this about? It reminds me a little of Astroneer, but also vague Inside vibes. Puzzle adventure set in Saturn Moon Titan, focus on smooth and unique gameplay and finely crafted animations. Yeah, that. So you remember when Inside came out, we were talking about how kind of surprising it was that it didn't do better. It still did well, but I think it didn't do as well as it seemed like it should have compared to Limbo and stuff like that. It was just so well made and so well crafted. I love that game. Even though I don't usually like those types of games. Seems like somewhat of a risky genre, at least risky if your budget is big. And they spent a long time making it, and it shows. Like, that game is such a high quality game. Good luck to them. It looks beautiful. Okay, let's play some Islanders. So again, this game is surprising because it's $5. it's a city builder game, but with like levels, which is unusual. Normally you want the gameplay to just run for as long as it can to keep people engaged and retained. So a bit surprising that it's doing well despite those two things. So I wanted to learn more about it. Farming pack or lumber pack? Well, I don't know if this sand is any good for farming. We've only got a few trees. Obviously stuff can grow up here. Let's try farming pack. It doesn't even tell you what farming pack means. I guess you just learn as you go along. So it came out, we got 5 out of there, and then it went into here. Did we do it? We did it! Yeah, the color scheme is nice, the music was relaxing. Look at these birds. If I put it there, I can get both of those, but then I'm wasting space. That's interesting. I can get 10 there, or 8 here and save space. Oh, what to do? Uh-oh. Oh, no. Ah. Is there a pixel where we... Yes! Phew! The greed didn't burn us. Yeah, this feels a lot like something I would like to play on mobile. For sure. Having this on my phone would be nice. Huh. Yeah, this game, it presents you with so many choices, and like you can place things anywhere. That it's. I always talk about how there's a line between a puzzle and a simulation. So I think things are more like a puzzle if there are few enough choices that you could actually enumerate a lot of them. And chess is kind of puzzle-ish. Like there actually are chess puzzles where they're like they show you a setup and they're like tell you, find a way to do checkmate in 2 moves or 3 moves or something like that. And even though those pieces can move in a variety of different ways, there's still only so many permutations that you can get. But with this game, because you can place anywhere and it's per pixel, the permutations is just like a gigantic number of them. So this game, it feels like a puzzle because you're trying to optimize the score, but because there are so many permutations, you cannot possibly evaluate all of them. So you're going based on feel, and that's when I think that things are more like a simulation game where you're trying to just get a general feel for how things work. It's not something that you could ever explain. You could explain some general principles perhaps, but why do I feel like it would be better to be here than over there? There's just a whole bunch of variables that go into that. So I think it's good that this doesn't feel super puzzly because earlier on I was thinking that maybe it is puzzly and it was giving me kind of anxiety that I was not doing it correctly. But since there are so many possible choices, it's the optimal would be extremely, extremely difficult to identify. So that means I just try stuff, and I'm more willing to just try stuff. So I think that's part of the reason why this game is appealing, and maybe why city builders in general are too. Got more houses. Oh, it gets kind of overwhelming. You get really irregular and like organic looking cities from this game, which is cool. Well, this is enough actually. Let's just go to the next island and see. Let's go! Start with the farm, then place the seaweed. Oh, should I have? Anyway, it's not too surprising that it could still do well on Steam. Obviously, city builders do well, but also games that are sort of relaxing, stylish mobile games like Mini Metro do quite well too. So yeah, it's neat that smaller games like this can make, so it's probably got, if you use the Boxlighter coefficient of 50, it sold 100,000 units in a month and a half at $5. So $500,000. Like, this game is going to go on to make multiple millions, and it wouldn't have been a huge development time to make it. So yeah, it makes me happy again just to see that making games in a variety of different ways is still viable as long as the game itself is good and works for the market. And obviously city builders, I think there's space for people to innovate in city builders. So if you're a city builder fan, we're doing it with Industries of Titan, but I think there's a lot of different ways that you can make them, and it seems like different price points, different sizes, and amounts of depth. It's viable. So give it a shot. And normally a city builder takes you a long time to make because there's so many different systems. But this game, and Blockhood, if you go and take a look at Blockhood as well, it feels like it has one core system, but then a lot of different values within that system. Because like every building has likes and dislikes, and different numbers for those likes and dislikes. That's the whole thing. That's the whole system. But because of the way that different buildings behave, just because that system is simple doesn't mean that the results of it are simple. So yeah, you can still make quite simple games in the city builder genre that shouldn't take you ages to make and be quite profitable. This game's going to make millions, and I'm sure the budget was not in the millions. So that's good to see. It's always encouraging when things like this and things like that chart that we look at for the total number of releases and things like that, it's indicating that Indiepocalypse is not an accelerating thing that's getting worse and worse. And there's a variety of ways that we can still succeed and make cool, innovative new things and be successful. So, well, I think that's going to wrap it up for this Clark Tank. This Clark Tank is over. Goodbye, chums.